So welcome to Marketing RV Part 2A.
Right, episode 24, technically.
Technically, yes.
From the Split Rail Tavern in Westchester, Pennsylvania.
This is a cool place.
It is pretty cool, yeah.
Now, you've been here before.
Just the last episode.
Well, right, but before that?
Which, if you're listening, you know they're both one episode split into two.
That's right.
Before this, multiple times, absolutely. This is
split into two, like the split rail.
Split rail,
Oh,
split
now
podcast.
I get the railing.
There you go.
Duh.
So come out and see the split rail that she was all intrigued.
I'm all upset because I see
are.
the railing is split in half, and I'm like, somebody's going to fall, and they have a piece of glass there.
Split rail.
It's
there
a
it is.
split rail.
Split rail.
I'm thinking railroad. I don't
Well,
know.
listen, I'm going to tie this together real quick. We had
Railroad
a great
tie.
episode. Nice. We had a great episode 1 with Marty.
Yeah, Marty's cool.
And this just jump in. We're gonna have to jump in at a certain point here because we kept recording. So pick up where you left off.
So where we left off in the first episode, if you were listening, is I'd said that I didn't think the government, even though they're collecting all the data, I kind of alluded to the fact that there's no way that they're smart enough to tie it all together and really use it against us. And Marty's shaking his head no, and we hand him the mic.
Yep.
They're probably listening to this podcast.
They
but
definitely
number one,
are.
They're 100% listening. If you go look, you want to know, if they're listening or not, just go search the Vizio. I don't want to turn this into like a total conspiracy.
No, let's do this. This is fun.
Let's go search Vizio lawsuit settlement, right? So you remember
Vizio the TV.
Vizio
so
the
with a
TV.
Z.
Right.
Okay.
So now I don't know how much of this is like 100% true, but here's my theory behind it: is you look at all of a sudden the HD TVs dropped in price, and you have Vizio coming down and going, yeah, we're going to give you, instead of spending $2,800 on them, we're selling them for it was like $600, $700. So they settled a lawsuit because essentially if you didn't turn off the other mic, they were listening in and they recorded all that data.
Yep.
Right? And then I just go and then you think they're not listening. Why the hell would you put an Amazon Echo in your home?
Yep.
At all?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, I have them and I don't care.
Yeah, but you don't care. It's
Right.
the same thing when you have your camera uncovered, when
True
your
story.
pants are off. You're just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's fine. But there's also, they're just storing that data. So who's buying that data? And why would somebody go and say, hey, we're going to start a company, say Vizio. I'm not saying Vizio did this intentionally
right.
or not.
They're out there.
Maybe it was just a mistake. The engineer didn't put it in the system to like, hey, make sure we turn this off because it's two-way. Because it's just like your Comcast, remote now. You talk into it.
Right.
Where's all that data go?
Yep.
Where's all that data go? And then you go back, one last second, then you go back and you look at how fast Apple gave up, the rights to like, hey, we'll crack that phone for you. No problem. Like, that's your rights or people listening. So where's it all going?
I
What's it
agree,
all
and that's
doing?
where they say this desert wind data center
probably exists.
No, I know it exists. Well, I can't say I know it. I've seen pictures, but that could be all propaganda. But no, my thought is though that the government's collecting it, but they trip themselves up. Are they really going to do anything? I guess they can. I guess they have done stuff with it. This is so 1984. It's so Orwellian.
Yeah.
Did you finally read the book or did?
If a lot of my close friends laugh at me that I'm a social media marketer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't put much stuff out there personally. I don't at all. I've already had my identity stolen 3 times.
Oh my gosh!
And I've been hacked twice.
Wow!
Like hacked to the point where I was like shutting off bank accounts and stuff like that. One of them just happened a few months ago.
Oh my gosh! What a headache!
I have no idea why. I had somebody like 4 years ago when I was fixing up a bigger mess look into it. So I'm very cautious, and they always laugh, and I'll even bring up one more before I even go into that Face app. If you're using that, you're giving up all your permission to your likeness to some random company that just happens to be in Russia.
Tell me about the Face app.
So it's like trending right now, like as of July 17th, 2019. It's trending right now where people can see themselves and how they look like 30 years older. All those apps, all those things that have been floating around, those games that you find on Facebook, they're all information gatherers. That's all they are.
Yeah.
They're really not like
they sucker you in.
That's why those games are free.
Yeah.
Because they just want your information.
Same with those questionnaires, find out what kind of wine you would be if blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, your 6 best friends. Like, all that is just giving you permission to go look at who your connections are. So all my friends joke around with me, and they're like, I can't believe out of anybody, Marty is, on social media and runs an agency around it. And just because, like, I would never have anything out there. I would never. Unless it was 100% professional and you could find me on there, I'd scrub everything else off.
Wow.
But there was also a point in time where Bad Rhino was doing really well. I was like, all right, I got to make a decision here. So do I play the game or do I, hide out? But I try and hide, like, a lot of stuff. I don't, different things just because I'm more cautious. And once you have your identity stolen, you get real cautious.
Yeah.
People taking out loans in your name and other stuff that you're finding out like 3-4 months later.
My husband had that done recently, and he's not on anything social. Amazing.
My real estate bank account one time was shut off. Like, they wouldn't take payments out, and then like a mortgage company went. Then I was like late on all these payments, and I didn't even know. I thought the money was just going out. Crazy.
So to that point, where we talk a lot about this. I always talk about privacy for convenience,
right.
the privacy for convenience tour. And so last night we were actually my wife and I were sitting on the couch at home, and she got a phone call. And I want to say it was probably 9:30 at night. It was after hours.
Yeah.
And she got a call, and she looks at it, and she says, it's coming from my own number.
Yeah, that's
right?
a neat one, right?
That's cool. So I go pick it up. So she picks it up, and it's, hello, this is your Verizon account has been suspended. And
right.
It's just a shade off of an American's voice. Like it's a robotic, Autobot, but they're sounding better and better. Like, it almost sounds like it could be Verizon, but we're smart enough to know. And so I said, no, start plugging information in. So it said, punch in your number, and she put a dummy number in, and I'm waiting for so typically, if it's your real carrier, if you were stupid enough to do
type
that.
in your number.
No. Well, I don't know. I told her to type in a different number than her own. Right. She might have done mine. So she typed in a goofy number, and it said, your number is XYZ, thank you. Tell us your the zip code digits.
Right.
She made up a number, random, and at that point it's like, that's not the one we have on file if it's wrong.
Right.
And in the meantime, okay, this is what you typed in, correct? Your last 4 of your social. Yeah. Right. So tell me what that's all about. Tell me what that's all about.
Taking that information and gathering it, and then if you have just that, I sat in on security things before in presentations. It's really scary.
Yep.
Scary stuff, and like how you can find people. But that you can take, if you have, I think it was 4, then you can put that into 4 digits rather of your social security number. Then you can put that into a random number generator. And what they'll do is they'll take all the other pieces that they do know, like your address, your phone number.
Yep.
Then they'll plug that in, and then they'll have a massive computer basically go in and start creating all these other accounts and everything like that.
Well, let's stop there, because
once they hit the lottery, they literally just hit the lottery.
By the way, outside of the last 4 of your the last 4 of your social, right? Everything else, most people are probably doing willingly online.
Oh, 100%.
Your physical home address, where you probably have your bills come to and your bank accounts attached to, is probably somewhere online. I probably could find it.
You could probably
maybe not you,
right.
But you're diligent,
yep.
Right? But here's the other thing too.
It's really hard to actually hide some of this.
Totally is,
yeah.
Especially if they
you bought a house. It's like public.
Well, but forget that. Like even if you do have a bank account, if these people are actually targeting the servers of Wells Fargo and you have information there and
right.
they break it, you're good, right? They're good, I should say. Here's the other piece that I think was interesting. So I had a client a little while back that got into crypto.
Right.
And so the conversation came up of burner phones and all the backstory and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I come to find out, this was a couple years back, that what they were doing was they were taking inventory of pieces of information that your cell phone company
right.
would ask you for. So if you call Verizon right now and you initiate the phone call and you say, I want to make a change in my plan, there's 5 or 6 questions they ask you, right, that
Right.
Last 4 social, yep. Give us the primary number, what's your passcode that's on the account, all that stuff. Well, 90% of this stuff you're putting out online anyway, so the hackers already know it. There's just a couple pieces of information they don't know. Here's what happens. They call Verizon with your information as you port your number to a different phone. Now, guess where all your 2-factor authentications are coming from? So they can go and set up a TD Bank account or go hack yours and then do a reset password. Where's that reset password come to?
Right to your phone.
The new phone.
Yep.
Right? The new phone where the new number is. So they're hacking accounts. So how do you stop it? You go to Verizon, and it's not even foolproof, but you tell them, I have to be physically in store for me to make any account changes.
Right. Yep.
But even still, what happens? Somebody calls, they get a 23-year-old brand new tech on the phone, they do what they do, right?
You're halfway, or even if you're stuck somewhere, you're halfway across the country or whatever, and you call and you try and do something.
You can't.
Too, and you can't. So, like, there's also limitations on
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a scary world. I mean, I love it because it keeps my brain going.
Yeah.
But you got to really be on your toes.
One of my clients owns a craft brewery out by State College. Him and I get along really well because we talk about this stuff. And when he was trying to promote his brewery and his restaurant, he came up with all these things. And I was like, yeah, Tim, I'll wind up being out there and I'll just live on the top of the mountain with you, because if I wasn't in this business, I probably would get out of that. And it's not because I'm scared. It's more so along the lines of it just feels creepy at times, right?
Sure it does.
But, with all that being said, there's a lot of pluses to people being a little bit more open and things. I think there's a lot more information out there, not only locally and nationally and worldwide. And I think that pulls down why you have, we're talking about being crazy with Area 51. But I actually think it's cool that people are thinking, like, you know what, like, screw this. Like, we want to know stuff, right? I've always been there on the more along lines is what I don't know, I'm okay with.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to know everything. You know? And I think the internet has brought down a lot of those barriers, which I think is super cool. But it's also, like you just said, it's a scary world.
Well, and the other part of it too is how are we doing on time? We're okay? Are we skipping right through the 30, or are you gonna break it up?
Yeah, we're breaking up after.
Okay. No, but I mean, do you want to say, like, stick around for episode 2? No, we're good. The boss is telling me we're just rolling. I forget where I was going with that one. I broke my train of thought. Yeah, aliens. But
aliens that have your cell phone that are opening bank accounts.
That's my 14-year-old daughter, I think, is what you just described. I actually, just to get to even deeper down that rabbit hole, obviously that's a double-edged sword, all the information we
keep
have,
going
right?
deeper. We'll be a 6-hour podcast.
I know. But here's something I heard yesterday, and I haven't done tons of research into this yet, but it made me a little bit unnerved, if that's the word I want to use. I had a person that I talked to, and I'm going to be real vague for obvious reasons.
Sure.
They just had a grandson pass away at 13 days.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, awful story. But one of the things that she told me was, it was a very, very unique. She gave me a number. 1 in 1 million people have this or something, and I just made that up. But it was something crazy, like lottery winning number. Awful.
Right.
Just doesn't happen.
Like
so
crazy disease, was it?
What was it?
Just a crazy disease.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like something she named it, and I was like, I have no idea what that was.
Right.
But basically, it was he couldn't digest proteins.
Okay.
And it just got worse and worse. So she said what they found out was, and she said this to me, so I got to do a little research, and I'm looking at it online. There's some articles about this at a quick search. But basically what she said was, the government comes in and does a blood test on your baby. You don't probably know, you probably consent to it when you're signing all the paperwork, you have no idea. She said in this particular instance, the government actually found this disease in the child, in her grandson. So what happened was they were fine. Everything was going on. They just thought he was having problems with his eating and all this good stuff. He was having a problem with breast milk, I guess, and just regular stuff. And the government called the hospital and said, we did these tests, this genetic testing, and we found X, Y, and Z. You need to move him out of where he's at and send him to X, Y, and Z. So they did enough genetic testing within the 13 days to find out this rare disease. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I don't have to. I mean, I've read a lot of it. It goes around. This is not a political statement, but if you want to look deeper at something, look at the abortion issue and what they want some of that information for.
Okay.
So that
do you want to touch
I
that?
don't want to go and
no.
On that. I think it's just more the same. If you just take what Gene just mentioned and then you look at some of that stuff, and you just have to tie some things together, and it's just like, well, why is this legal versus not legal, and what do you want to maintain and certain things? And again, it's not about rights or certain things. It's just what the other information could be, just like you just mentioned for your friend.
It's weird science. I mean, I know you don't want to go down that road, and we won't, because that's a real hot button with me, that issue. But just from that scientific and that weird science perspective, what they want to do, why there's such a force
it's all in Area 51.
Well, I don't know about that, but there is a force in the government that they want to experiment on these babies, fetuses, if you will, you know, use the stem cells, try to grow other parts, all this cloning. It's just because we can doesn't mean we should. Science is getting really weird. I mean, we already just talked about how Orwellian electronics are and how people are. It's funny because my parents used to say, all these newfangled TVs, I wonder if they're looking at us. And I laughed them off, but you pretty much said they are.
That's why you have a piece of tape over your laptop.
Well, I know that now, but this was their TV on the wall at home, and before they had the internet connected to it or anything like that, and before they even had like FiOS, So, where am I going? Oh, so the same thing when you think about old movies with what's his name? Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Herman Munster,
Yeah.
all that kind of crap where, they're experimenting, taking brains out. That kind of, well,
I mean, if you tie cloning and AI together and then, I don't know, just connect the dots. I mean, people don't think about this stuff. Like, they only look at the surface.
Right.
With most issues anyway.
Well, because first of all, it's a lot to grasp, number one. And number two is it's hocus pocus.
Yeah.
There's no way anybody's doing anything like this.
Right.
But here's something I heard the other day. So to lead into that, well, no, that's what people think. People think like it's pointless. There's no aliens. It's pointless for me to think about Area 51.
But Lorraine's like, I don't think the government, has enough to do all this, but she's got a piece of tape over her laptop.
You're right.
Right?
Oh, I think they've proven, and not just the government. I think these are just private companies that do it too.
Oh, the government contracts a private company.
We were talking the other day. Well, that's true too, right? They all are third party for a reason. And just go back. The reason why we're doing this stuff, it's my belief, is that we're nervous that somebody else is going to beat us to the punch.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, you can go even further back.
Yep.
And see where it all starts. I mean, it's only like 100 years old. It's born out of basically World War I, and then it's just like, okay, so now we're on an international stage, and then it's just like, all right, so what do we have to do? And you just don't want to be back in a World War type situation, so it's always the deterrent to be a leader. And the U.S., good, bad, or indifferent, is taking the leadership role, but it also, there's a seedy side to it, but is that seedy side used for good or bad, right?
Yeah. And the last thing we need is to get into World War III with a country that has bionic goats with missile launchers on them.
We're going to have the goats.
That's the idea. Well, that's the idea. And if you're saying to me, somebody's going to get it, who do you want it first? Me.
Yeah, we want it, right?
Right? So I'm a little bit okay with that. Now, I want to get into this further because this took a turn that I didn't think it was going to, but I think
you knew exactly what you were doing.
I guess a little bit. I knew. Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't think you and I have ever talked about Area 51 or conspiracy theories, so I didn't know where you might have shut that down quick, right?
Well, no.
No, I'm glad you didn't. I think this, to me, is a lot of fun fodder.
Let's just, where this ties together with marketing
Sure.
and why I do it. There's a lot of stuff that floats around, right?
I'm so glad our guest is pulling our show together for us.
Sure. So, why you post controversial things is you want to see the reaction, and you want to see what it's going to take to get a reaction, right? So a lot of the stuff that I post, if Gene's been stalking my Facebook page, you'll notice a lot of stuff gets deleted over time.
I haven't noticed that. Actually.
I go back and delete a lot of stuff.
Okay.
With the election coming up, 2020, I'll be all over that because I like to follow the trends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you follow the trends and what's going on online, people are talking about those things. But if you use that within your marketing, not the political stuff, but the other stuff that's trending, what you can do is capitalize on how these systems are built so that you get your product, your business, your brand out in front of them much cheaper because you're just leveraging trending topics, like I said before.
Right.
So I think that's an important part, and a lot of that stuff comes around with, like we're talking about now, conspiracy theories and fun things because it's the information age, or that was they coined it in the 90s, right?
Yep. I'm with you. I love the conspiracy thing because conspiracy theories for me is almost like reading a fiction novel. Some people just like to read fiction and they get something out of it. And, maybe pages 80 to 86, you can relate them to your own life and you're like, yeah, that stuff probably happens. But the rest of the book, you're like, that's goofy, right? It would never happen in real life. And I'm like that with certain things, but I just enjoy the thought process that comes behind my brain working when I hear stuff like this. Could there be aliens? And if there are, what do they want with us? Have you know what DMT is and all that stuff?
Yeah.
And so is that really a lot of these guys in this conspiracy world talk about us being in a fishbowl controlled by somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think about it, I'm like, that would be so odd. The concept of that and me being controlled by, just being little lizards running around, building shit, is a weird thing. It sounds very strange. Do I think it's true? No. But when I think about it, it's wow, that's a strange, like, what if we are somebody's science project?
Yeah.
But to kind of go into that DNA, the DNA stuff and the data gathering and all that, a couple episodes ago, we talked about Ring and Nest and those guys pulling your video doorbell statistics.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about this, and what are your thoughts on it?
I do know a little bit about it. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, this is a convenience thing. But somebody brought it up that the UPS and the FedEx guy no longer has privacy.
Right.
Which I think is a key thing. Actually, it's funny. Like right now, the FedEx or UPS guys are walking in the door.
Yeah, they are.
All right, stop listening because Lorraine's here. She doesn't believe that.
That's weird.
That is weird, right? But that they don't have privacy, right? And I think that's a valid thing, but I also think it's part of your job. If you deliver, at a business, then you just need to know that you're being filmed. That's why they have all the signs up. And I think the same thing would apply to your home. As far as the data gathering stuff, I think that's interesting, and they just have a one-way feed. And, it was years ago, it was probably 10 years ago that I was in London. And when you're in Europe, and it's totally different. And I just remembered, I hope America never has like 97 security cameras like this place on the street corner. And then the next street corner is another 97 and another and another. And I think we're more, I think they hide them better here.
Yeah.
Like they've just been around, those ones in London just happen to be around since the 80s.
And you've gotten ticketed before from a camera?
Yeah. I fight it.
Yeah.
I fight it. It took me 6 months to pay the last one that I got.
I believe you.
And I was just like, I don't want to pay it. And then I was like, I kind of want to go to court just for fun. Just drive down to Delaware and do it.
Yeah.
But, the gathering of the information with all those things, I mean, again, you said it earlier. It's like you select your privacy and how you want to have privacy. And I think that's just a decision you have to make. I think they're cool, but then that feed's going somewhere.
Don't you think at this point you don't really get to select your privacy anymore?
I don't think so.
So I still can or I cannot?
Well, I think you can, but you have to make a really conscious decision to almost just live off the grid, so to speak.
You have to be off the grid.
Because you could do it. I mean, think about it. You know enough just, setting up your own business. I mean, you could put a couple layers under there and few other things that you could hide behind.
That's true, but there's always
it's so hard. But there's always something.
You got to get rid of your cell phone. You have to get rid of your debit and credit cards.
You
have to get rid of the computers on your car.
Yep.
You have to get rid of your doorbell. Right.
You know how weird it is when I parked a car. Like I was in Asheville, North Carolina this past weekend. And I was there meeting with another marketing firm and then going to breweries.
I was watching your beers. Don't worry, because I'm on Dry July, so every beer you post. And what did you say to me? You said, I posted the video of Dry July, and what was your comment?
It was something along the lines of, like, you were like 2.5 days in, and I was like, I'm 2.5 hours in.
Well, no, the one you posted was, what's this video about? Or opens beer, clicks play.
Oh, yeah. Opens beer, clicks play. That's right. So, so like down there, but it was funny, the rental car that these guys were driving around, we were listening to a podcast. Actually, it was of me, which was really weird.
Yep.
It's a different story. We were joking about it. We have the same coach.
Okay.
So he was listening to mine, and he was like, yeah, just connect your phone. Well, it was weird when we parked the car, I got out, and I got the notification that, oh, your car's parked. And I'm like, that's not my car. It's the rental car.
Yep.
Right? And I'm like, because you're just hooking up with Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
I just made sure, like, when we got done, I was like, Chase, I'm like, I just want to delete this, off of there. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, it's a good idea. I'm like, no, we're doing it, like, right now.
Yeah, right.
Because then I come back, and that feature is on. I park my own car, and it tells me where it's parked. And I was like, I don't have this feature on. It somehow automatically turned it on in my iPhone.
Oh, wow.
So, like, all these things you just have to be cautious of.
Well, and to that point, I always say to myself,
I don't even know how I got on that topic.
I'm so confused these days as to how law enforcement doesn't catch everybody. Like I could,
Maybe they don't want to.
Well, that could be true.
Uncle Vinny's still listening.
Yeah, go into the conspiracy theory. You could be right about that. But like for me, I always felt like if I were to be accused of something, and that I didn't do, I could prove it through Google Timeline, my credit card transactions, where I drove my car. But
then somebody could just go easily manipulate it. Now,
well, that's true, I guess.
My interns a few years ago were making fun of me. It was in jest, but they were all talking about, oh, this is great. You have the thumbprint ID. I'm like, hell no, am I putting my thumbprint in there, right?
Right.
And they were like, why? It's just easier. I'm like, and then you're going to, people voluntarily now put their face in there? I'm
Yep.
like, no. I'm like, It's just all, something like one day you get a call and you're wanted for murder in Australia, and they have your fingerprint, they have your face.
Yep.
They create a video because of the Nest account, and you're streaming, and they just catch you walking into your door all the time, and they're like, yeah, this door was here. They manipulate the GPS.
Dude, that's crazy shit right there.
I know.
That is crazy.
But tell me that's not it's totally
100% possible.
Right?
And it's becoming easier and easier to do.
I know. And then, how long can I keep, I got the new iPhone, 6 months ago. They shattered my other one. So I got the new one. They're like, you want to set up facial recognition? I'm like, nope.
No.
And they're like, well, it's a lot easier. I'm like, no, I just want to do the code. I'm
yeah, thanks for the advice.
Yeah, thanks, but no.
Yeah.
It's easier for a lot of stuff. You could do, open your bank account. You can use it as their password. I'm like, no.
Wait, did you see the new creepy ass commercial with the iPhone facial recognition?
Yeah.
Where the guy's sleeping on the beach chair? Uh-huh. So have you seen this yet? I'm going to Lorraine. She's saying no. There's a commercial for iPhone, and we got to pull it up, I think, before we leave. See if you can pull up the new iPhone commercial. There's a guy on a beach on a chair with his dog sleeping, and his phone is sitting up on a table, and he basically opens his eyes. It recognizes his face, unlocks. He's able to read the notifications with movements of his eyes, and then when he closes his eyes again, it goes back to sleep. That's how lazy we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's so much easier. You don't have to type in six characters, Marty. Use your face.
But why? I mean, why would you want that? It's if I had a vault, maybe I'd want it there.
Yeah.
Or a fingerprint safe or something like that.
I just think that I'm on this in the same boat as you. Why would I offer up my fingerprint?
It took me forever to go TSA pre.
Yeah.
It took me forever.
Why? What do they do that you didn't want to do?
All they did was fingerprint you, and they just do a background check. It's not a huge deal.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to volunteer.
The government has my fingerprints from years ago when I was 20.
Yeah. They have mine too.
That's
a whole other podcast.
It sure is. If you go, maybe that's on Taps and
Tees.
And Tees, because there were a lot of taps involved when I was giving my fingerprints out.
They were probably Tees, but they were referred to something different.
I have a question about this whole fingerprint thing. So I've already done that on the iPhone, never even thinking that.
Yeah, now Apple has your fingerprint.
Yeah. I can't undo that.
Probably not.
So when I get a new phone, if I say, oh, no, I'm not going to put my thumbprint, too bad, it's already out there.
It's already there.
Oh, madam.
Yep.
And here I try to be so careful. So, no, I'm with you. I do sometimes go down that conspiracy theory rabbit hole. But some of the conspiracies I just don't think, and I say the government's not smart enough. That's not true. I just don't think that they're always able to organize it, but it's becoming easier as I'm just hearing you two talk, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I totally want to go off the grid.
Offering it up.
Yeah. Yeah, they totally do. And don't you think it's the younger generation more? I mean, obviously, the old heads aren't doing it as much, but it's kind of scary.
I think there's a lot of good with technology, and I think some of this stuff is we talk about, and it's just it's already out there anyway, and it's been out there probably longer than everybody realizes. It's just whether that's used for good or bad, and you want to make sure it's used for good.
There's always going to be somebody sinister out there that's going to steal the information and use it for bad.
That's why we need the goats, and we hope we have them
the goats.
First.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I did Google that, and I saw some things on bionic legs on goats and stuff. We're going to have all kinds of links to this in this podcast. What the heck? Gee. But let's bring it again back to marketing. I had so many questions, and in our last episode, in part one of this, Marty said something about I don't remember your exact words about how some clients, they want to be out there, but they don't want to do what's necessary to be out there. I wonder if you encounter this, and this is just a quick plug because I do need to talk about the play, as Gene mentioned early in the last episode. There's a small theater in Little Woodstown, New Jersey, population 25. And it was the dream of the wife. It's a husband and wife who own the theater. It's called Blue Moon Theater. It's a wonderful spot. It's going to be a great, venue, and they've already have a lot of things going on with classes. And it's wonderful. There's the plug. They're going to run La Familia this fall, and so I said I'll help promote the show with you. And then they asked, would you help promote our theater? And I'm like, well, I'll do what I can, sharing on my social pages and whatnot, but I can't commit to you. Basically free. It's hard. It's marketing, right?
It's tough.
What they need to do, though, because the population in that area is so tiny, they need to rouse the entire town, and they're working their tails off to do this. Do you get clients like that think, oh, well, you're in marketing and you're successful, so you could do this for us? And you're like, I can't wave a magic wand. You need a team of people, How do you deal with that?
I think it's just coming at it from a realistic perspective. So I'll just walk you through a recent example just because it's fresh, and I actually talked about it on another podcast. It was, I had somebody call, and I was willing to work with them, and they were like, all right, we want to do this with the website. And I'm like, awesome. I'm like, what's your budget? And they told me the number, and let's just make up numbers. The budget they needed to be was somewhere around $25,000 based on what they just rattled off.
This sounds like when I called you from a former job.
Right. So they needed to be roughly somewhere in that neck of the woods. Maybe they would spend up to there, maybe not. But anyway, they said, we're looking to spend like $3,500. I was like, hey, that's no problem. I'm like, so you want this, this, and this? They're like, well, that's not going to work. And I'm like, well, that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, exactly.
$3,500.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I said, well, they're like, well, we could probably go a little bit higher than that. I was like, okay, so, what's the number? And they said $5,000. I'm like, so you want this and this? And then they're like, no, you're not hearing me. I'm like, no, I'm hearing you clear.
You're not hearing me.
You're not hearing me. Like, what you're asking for is just not possible. So, like, when you have somebody that comes to you like that, you just talk to them about what their goals are. And then sometimes
and I did, yeah.
Right. But then sometimes you say, okay, so these are your goals. What's your plan to get there? And walk them through that. Then once they, say that, be like, all right, cool. Well, this is what I would recommend.
Mm-hmm.
And, we
did that too.
Right. And then they would say, oh, well, we can't do that. And then be like, I can't work with you. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's just it.
Like
you have to do it.
You have unrealistic expectations for what it is. And they're like, well, we can't spend all this money for that. Well, can you guarantee a return? I'm like, let me ask you a question. Am I handling your sales? No. Am I handling the product and the production and everything? They're like, no. And I'm like, I can't guarantee you anything.
Exactly.
And any marketer or anybody from an agency that guarantees, they're going to have problems, because if something goes wrong where they have a troubled salesperson that doesn't follow up on sales calls, that's our number one thing.
Oh, yes.
We'll be like,
I've seen that in organizations.
Hey, we're looking at your reports. We generated over 1,500 leads. All right, so how are we doing with those? Well, no one's called them. And by the way, we're not sure if we're getting value from you guys. And be like, all right, get the hell out of here.
I've had that happen in-house in situations where I've worked. It's like, okay, I got all the leads. You got to make the calls.
Yeah, so from our perspective, when we have somebody that comes there, we educate first, and we're nice about it.
Sure,
I'm doing some of this a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But, we're nice about it, and we say, we may not be the best fit for you, because, we want to be, judged by your experience with us, but we also want to succeed for you. And here's what we're recommending. And, it's funny when they say, well, I don't know if we can do that. And then that's fine. We'll just move on. But this is what we're recommending, and this is what we know will work. Mm. You don't go into your doctor, and the doctor's like, you need surgery on that. Well, I might get a second opinion, which is fine, fair.
Right.
But at the same time, if this second opinion comes back and goes, well, your budget should be somewhere around $1,500 in ad spend per month, and you should be doing this, this, and this, and the grand total is going to be, $8,000 for a type of project. You go to somebody else and they give you somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah. You got to think, like, maybe they know what they're talking about.
Exactly. right. Especially if you get the second opinion.
Right.
And going back to our last episode where Marty suggested that you keep the length of a podcast to a car ride, we're there, baby. We're there on part 2. You guys ready to wrap? I know you had 1,000 things, Gene, you wanted to talk about. So, Marty.
Yeah.
The plugs again for Bad Rhino.
Sure. You can find us, badrhinoinc.com has a blog that's now had 10 years of information on there. You can check that out. And like I said, we're located in Westchester, and I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. I know how busy you are. One quick last question.
Sure.
Because you said something that also triggered this in my head. Is that any successful entrepreneur, you have other things in mind? You talked about an exit plan. Do you have another business in mind?
No. I mean, I have like 4 or 5 side projects that are almost ready to go.
Are they related to what you're doing now, or completely different?
They're related.
So you're not going to open your own golf course, compete with Trump National or anything like that? All right,
no.
Sure.
I'm not going to do anything like crazy like that. I mean, I don't think like I'm lucky enough to have a lot of mentors and people that I talk to. And when I asked the older guys and girls, and they're in their 80s and 70s, and they've been where I'm sitting now, I think like the interesting part is like, how do you turn this off? And they're like, you don't.
You don't turn it. You just keep going.
You just go into the next one, the next one, the next one. And I think that's true. I think they just say you slow down a little bit.
Yeah. And try to smell the roses and enjoy it. Yeah. All right. Well, it is Marketing RV with Ranalli and Volpe. And Gene, tell everybody what you need them to do.
Get out to iTunes, search for Marketing RV with Ranalli and Volpe. 5 stars only.
Or Gene will.
I'm coming to see you. Don't make me come see you.
If he does come to see you, make sure you have food and a nice cold
And
beer.
beer. Yeah, I go much quieter when that's the case.
All right. Ciao.
Ciao.